Latch the windows, lock the doors, and put the kids to bed. It's time for another episode of
Tales from the Garage!
Okay guys, here I am back again. It's been a little while since I did my last video. Not really prepared for this one, so I'm just going to do a random vinyl pull. Kind of quick note or not so quick note. Because of my financial situation, I have to try to get money any way I can. So one of the things, it's going to take time though, that I have to do is I have to attempt to monetize my YouTube channel, which means ads, which probably most people out there, if you don't know, you can get ad blockers which cut out the ads anyway. However, I'm not able to do it on the Cosmic Pickle channel excuse me, because I have too much music by other artists on there. It's a copyright issue. So the only thing I can do is to pull off all the albums that I put up, the out-of-print albums. I don't want to do that for several reasons. One of them is because I want the music to be out there, because people are, you know, many more people, and I have more subscribers that are interested in that than watch my videos. And a lot of people are appreciative of the fact that I'm putting these albums up, especially because you can't buy them, you know, for the most part, maybe secondhand kind of thing. But just yesterday, I even got a nice note from Fred Simon, who one of his long out-of-print albums I put up, just a solo keyboard thing, which was never re-released on CD at all, ever actually, just came out on vinyl in the early to mid 1980s. And he actually thanked me for putting his music up, which was nice. So, and you know, it's actually a lot of work to create those videos and to get the photographs that I try to put in there, to notate the time that each individual track starts, so I can put the times up in the video so people can go directly to an individual song or piece. So it's actually a lot of work to do those. So I'd hate to just toss that out. And, you know, which is the only way that I can monetize that, my Cosmic Pickle channel, is to ditch all the music that's up on there and just leave my videos. I don't want to do that, and I'm not going to do that. So I have actually another channel that predates Cosmic Pickle, which almost no one knows about. I have 17 subscribers on there. And I'm putting a link for that channel right in my description. And what I'm doing is I'm going to be putting all my future videos, you know, of me talking, the content videos, not the music stuff, apart from my music. I'm going to put them on there, and the channel name is just G Lee, L-E-E. Which, if you do a lookup, unfortunately, on YouTube, you get a bunch of things that come up there. So you'd probably be better off just looking for it by the link that I'll put up a link. And what I did over the last few days is I put all 40, this one will be 41, of my Tales from the Garage actually are already on there. So I put my old archived Tales from the Garage 1 through 40 up on there, and all the new ones will be going there. I'll also be putting it on my Cosmic Pickle channel for a while at least, but hopefully anybody that's interested will subscribe to my other channel as well. So maybe keep a subscription to both, because I can't put music up on the new G Lee channel, or the old G Lee channel that I almost deleted it, which I'm glad I didn't. So I'm gonna, all my live in-person videos where I talk about music, and even my own music, I will put up on there as well. So, you know, if you're interested, I have to get at least 1,000 subscribers before I can even put in a request to monetize it. So that's going to take a long time, I know. But if you like watching these videos of mine, if you could just subscribe to that channel as well, I'd appreciate it. And eventually I'll put in a request for YouTube to monetize it, and they'll probably reject me even after all this effort anyway. Okay, so I've been yapping for almost 5 minutes, and there's been no vinyl has come off the shelves yet. So let me just get started. I don't know what I'm grabbing here. I hope it's a good one. Wow, this is one I didn't even know was there, and it's not ECM. I don't even have this on. I haven't even bought this on CD. Here's I bought this at Discomat. This is long before the CD era, and this is certainly a jazz classic. This is one of those albums that a lot. Well, certainly at the time in the mid '60s, a lot of people that weren't into jazz would have this album. This is kind of like a Dave Brubeck's Take 5 kind of thing. And that is Jazz Samba with Stan Getz and Charlie Byrd. This is a Japanese pressing, which I've played maybe twice. I pretty much played it to make a cassette copy of it, listen to the cassette copy all those years. So this is, the original album's about from 1962. So it's basically Jazz Samba. It's Stan Getz and Charlie Byrd together. Charlie Byrd is the nylon string classical guitarist that didn't play electric, but played very big into Jobim. He played a lot of Antonio Carlos Jobim, and in fact, Charlie Byrd's albums are the first place where I heard Jobim's music. And so for me, you know, there's a lot of times when Charlie Byrd, to me, has actually done definitive versions of Jobim's stuff that I like better than Jobim's. Though I really do like Jobim's output as well. I haven't opened this in probably close to 30 years. Stan Getz, tenor sax, Charlie Byrd, guitar. Keter Betts, bass. Gene Byrd, bass and guitar. Buddy Demperschmidt, drums, and Bill Reichenbach on drums. Desafinado, Samba Triste, Baja. Recorded February 13, 1962. So I don't know why he's got two different rhythm sections there, if he recorded it in one day. But, so this was, I guess, kind of like a follow-up to the big success that Stan Getz had with the girl from Ipanema. And so, you know, the Brazilian jazz scene got, you know, big suddenly, bossa nova. And so this was kind of like a follow-up album to the Girl from Ipanema album, but I understand this did very well on its own. And probably helped a great deal to get Charlie Byrd's name out there as well. I like it, you know, the recording quality is a little rough, you know, you have to know, obviously, 1962 is not the recording technology of modern times. And with it being so acoustic oriented, especially with the nylon string guitar, you know, it's really nice to have modern techniques. So it's not quite as, you know, like the guitar maybe isn't quite as full sounding as you would like it to be. But, you know, the quality is pretty damn good anyway. And that's a rare, for me, Japanese vinyl pressing that I have. It's an absolute mint condition. All right. Well, you knew I was going to hit an ECM recording. It's funny because I just listened to this one recently. And now, despite the fact of all the years that I've had Terji Ripple and David Darling's EOS album, recorded May 1983, two things come to mind. You know, this is a memory album for me. But in more recent times, Karn pulled this out and did a wonderful video that started a thread that was Name an Album, where the first track, the album starts off with a track that's completely unlike anything on the rest of the album. I still can't think of a better example of this. You know, so that's what I think of now when I listen to this. Naturally, I have the CD, and I have a couple memories associated with this. I guess the first one there was a free concert given on a Sunday afternoon. I want to say it's probably it must have been 1983, early 83. And it was the ECM short-lived band Gallery. And it had been some time after they released their one and only album on ECM. But Dave Samuels, who was the vibraphone and marimba player of Gallery, and also I learned only years later that he was in Spyro Gyra as well, which I didn't know, because I wasn't particularly into Spyro Gyra. I knew him as the ECM guy in Double Image, that he had another band he had co-founded. Anyway, on a Sunday afternoon at a college in New Jersey where Dave Samuels was a teacher, which I didn't know, he gave a free concert with kind of a revamped Gallery. It had a different rhythm section than on the album, but the bass player, instead of Ratso Harris, who played on the album, was none other than Mark Johnson, who was just getting to the point where he was really starting to appear in a lot of places, especially on ECM Records and with John Abercrombie's group. So Mark Johnson wasn't quite the known guy that he soon became, even though he had played with Bill Evans, which I didn't know at the time either, because I didn't know Mark Johnson was going to be there. So Mark Johnson was a replacement bassist. Mike DePasqua, who was the drummer on the original album, the late great Mike DePasqua, was actually touring with Jan Garbarek, and literally the night before, the Saturday night before, I had seen Jan Garbarek's group in New York City with Mike DePasqua playing. So there was a replacement drummer, which I believe was a student in the school. I don't remember the guy's name. But the kind of front line of the band with Paul McCandless on reeds and David Darling on cello, and Dave Samuels was still in there. And after the concert, it was incredible that there wasn't more people there, especially considering it was a free thing. I think probably we were the only, my friend and I who went were probably the only people who weren't students at the school who went to this thing. But I guess it was a question of hearing about it as well. And I got to talk to Paul McCandless, didn't get to talk to Mark Johnson or Dave Samuels, but got to talk to Paul McCandless a little bit. And I asked him about the then new concept for Oregon, his band, with bringing electric instruments into the group, because Oregon had just started having Ralph Towner bring synthesizers into the group at the time. And I asked him how he felt about that. I got to speak more with Dave Darling, who was very approachable, very easy and friendly guy, easy guy to talk to. And he told me about this album. I don't think it had been recorded yet. David had recorded, I guess it was his first all-solo album, called Journal October for ECM Records. And it was David Darling with multiple overdubs of cello and electric cello and acoustic cello and I think like 8-string cello and stuff like that. It's an incredible, incredible album. Still ranks with easily one of my favorite things that David Darling's ever done. And really innovative at the time, even now. And kind of different from David Darling's other solo cello albums. And that had probably been done, I want to say maybe 1982 or 81. Journal October, great album if you ever get a chance to hear it. Terji Ripple had apparently heard the album and was so impressed by it, he contacted David Darling to see if he would be interested in making a duo album of just electric guitar and David Darling on his cello. And they also play a little like some electric keyboards, kind of just holding chords as a background kind of thing, like filling in a little background colors. And so this is one of the few times, because it's obviously before the internet, when I knew an album was coming out months and months before it came out, and was looking for it in the store for quite some time. And since it hadn't been, I don't think it had been recorded yet. I think I'm not sure if they were in the process of setting up the recording dates, which happened in May 1983 or not. And I know at that time it used to take 8 or 9 months for an album to come out after it was recorded on ECM. So I probably started looking for this, a year before it came out. And I remember when it came out, picking it up at the store and looking at it and saying, oh, okay, they're it's just cello, 8-string cello, electric guitar, and a Casio synthesizer. And I put it on starting at side 1, and side 1 starts off with no David Darling on it at all. Actually, it's a solo electric guitar piece that is just an out-and-out rock and roll piece. And I'm like, oh my God, what the hell is this? It really, it sounded like it could be, like Van Halen in the studio before the band comes in, and Eddie Van Halen is just sitting there jamming away. That's what it sounds like. Just solo electric guitar live, no overdubs or anything. Loud as all hell. And I'm like, oh, wow, what the hell is this? But then again, right away, it goes on for just a little bit over 4 minutes. Likewise, side 2 of the album has a solo piece by David Darling, which is completely the opposite end of the spectrum, and that has overdubbing. But that's mostly what you would expect if you know David Darling's music. Overdubbed cellos, beautiful kind of dark and spacious stuff. But right with the second track on side 1, then the kind of thing that was more what I expected, kind of multiple cello overdubs, kind of electronically processed quite a bit, with the keyboard synth, kind of laying some basic backing chords, and Terje Reptel playing over it. The only thing that surprised me is he keeps a fairly rockish guitar tone throughout most of the album, and I thought that being that this is an album without a rhythm section, I kind of thought there were times when he would use maybe more of a clean tone, as he's done altered with his more clean electric tone and his more rockish tone on his own albums. But he keeps the processed guitar sound pretty much up on all of the tracks. So it's a little bit not 100% what I expected. But it's still an album I pull out and listen to, and I just listened to it. Was it last week? It was probably last week that I pulled it out and listened to it. Two of the tracks two of the tracks from this album. Was it 2? I think it was 2. It might have been one of the long ones. Actually ended up in a movie. And there's a movie that I actually bought the soundtrack for, thinking that there was Terje Reptel music on there that had been written for the movie. There's a movie I've never seen called Equinox. It probably came out in the late 80s. And I bought the soundtrack CD. It had 3 Terje Reptel songs on it, but all 3 of them are actually from albums released on ECM of Terje Reptel's, as it turns out. And one of the longer pieces from this album, which does make good movie music, is on here. It's either Mirage, which is 9 minutes, or it's the title track, Eos, which is 14 and a half minutes. I want to say I think it's Mirage, but I could be wrong. But somebody was smart, whoever, I don't know, was the director or producer of the movie, took 3 different Terje Reptel tunes from 2 or 3 different albums. I think the other 2 tracks might have come from 1 or 2 of the Chaser albums by Terje Reptel, albums I don't listen to much, and I don't even think I have all of those. I'm not sure if the 2 Chaser tracks are from one album or from 2 different Chaser albums. But a good choice to include the track from this one. This is a really cool album. It's good to get that first piece out of the way with the guitar that wakes you up. The loud rock and roll guitar thing. But it's when you know what to expect it doesn't shock you into a heart attack as much as when I first heard it. I really like that album. I wish they would do it again. Terje seems to be going more in the direction of bigger and bigger bands rather than small intimate things. I would love to see Terje Reptel do an all solo album like After the Rain, which is my favorite thing he ever did. That was from 76. I don't think he's going to do that again, unfortunately. Let me pull one more. Well, we got another ECM album. I really have to do something with the selection that's back there. Here is one of my favorite Jan Garbarek albums. Yeah, it's up there. Paths and Prints. You know, there's a connection here. It's a great cover. I remember when this came out, me and my buddy both bought copies of it. We talked at great length about it. It's got a 10-minute piece on here called Footprints, which is the second thing on the album. And it's one of the probably last times that Jan Garbarek played any kind of flutes. He's on past earlier albums, he played the standard metallic flute. And then kind of seems like he dropped it, and a few years later picked up on some like wood flutes, or ethnic flutes, but I think they were wood flutes. And unfortunately, I don't think he did much of them after this album. This album was recorded in December 1981. I remember buying it when it came out, and the guys in this edition of the group are Eberhard Weber, who played for years and years as the bassist in Jan Garbarek's group. The great John Christensen, my favorite drummer, on drums and percussion, and Bill Frisell on guitar. I'd probably put this. This easily is in his top 5 albums for me, and not just group albums. I don't think. I think everything. Yeah, this one I still listen to a lot. This is one that, again, I didn't play all that long ago. It probably goes back a couple months now, maybe. But it's just one with a lot of memories of me and my old buddy buying these ECM albums as they came out, at this time. And funny, it's connected to the story I was just telling about seeing Gallery at that free concert on a Sunday afternoon. The evening before, and it's weird how this is connected from a random vinyl pull. The evening before, I was talking about how I had seen the Jan Garbarek group play. Well, it was the tour supporting this album that I saw the Jan Garbarek group play. So Paths and Prints had come out. Me and my buddy Frank both had copies, which we listened to endlessly, and both spoke out about a lot. And then he found out that Jan Garbarek group was playing at the Bottom Line in New York, which was a club. It wasn't a jazz club. It was a club that had everything. It was a good club size-wise to see groups. Not too many rock bands could play there because the size was too small, so they had a lot of folk and jazz groups play there. And so we saw them, and one of my main reasons for going to see them is because I wanted to see Eberhard Weber play in person. Because at this time, to the best of my knowledge, and me and my buddy Frank, we weren't aware of Eberhard Weber at this time in the late 70s or early 80s touring and playing live anywhere near where we lived with his own groups. So at the time, I didn't even know if he had ever toured with his Colors group. And I'm a huge fan of Eberhard Weber, so I would have gone to see him if he was playing with, anything, just to see Eberhard Weber. But, this was a particularly good album of Jan Garbarek's. So on Saturday night, we went to go see them. Got to hurl a couple comments at Eberhard Weber. I couldn't talk to him because I was in too much awe of him. Basically just telling him how much I loved, particularly Fluid Russell, which is a great album of his. At the concert, though, I was expecting to see John Christensen, who plays on the album. John Christensen wasn't there, but Mike DePasqua was, and I got to talk to Mike DePasqua a whole longer than anybody else. Didn't get to talk to Bill Frisell or Jan Garbarek. Like I said, I just got a couple comments out to Eberhard Weber, but I got to talk to Mike DePasqua a whole lot, and Mike DePasqua, who had played an amazing drum solo. I had to compliment him on it. It was after the concert that I got to speak to him. And then he also told me of his of another session he had done recently, which turned out to be the Adelhard Reudinger album, the only album that Adelhard Reudinger made for ECM, which was another album that I just like I was able to find out the next day about this upcoming Terje Reptil David Darling album, Mike DePasqua told me about this upcoming Adelhard Reutinger album that I think he must have already just recorded, and that was a tough one. That took a while to find because it wasn't released in the U.S. domestically, but import copies, like ECM import copies, made their way over here, and I had to go into New York City to get it. But I got the Adelhard Reutinger, which I'm glad I did because it still hasn't come out on CD, and it's an excellent album. And I don't know why Adelhard Reutinger only recorded that one album for ECM, because it so fits in with the vibe, especially of the time, of what ECM was all about at the time. So this was a good concert. My only slight disappointment was not seeing John Christensen, but after seeing Mike DePasqua, who continued to play with Jan Garber Group after this, and played on a lot of albums that I have. He's the drummer on the Gallery album. I was just talking about Gallery. Recorded. He was like John Christensen had been maybe a few years earlier, where John Christensen was the drummer to get if you didn't have a set band and you needed a drummer and you were recording for ECM. For a lot of years, John Christensen was the guy, and for a little while, maybe Jack DeJohnette was grabbing sessions that John Christensen was too busy to take. And then it was Mike DePasqua. Those three guys, right in a row, and definitely overlapping, did many ECM productions, even in groups that they weren't necessarily like touring with or a part of, but rather ECM musicians who were doing group recordings that they needed a drummer and they didn't have their own drummer. So Mike DePasqua put out a lot of good things. He was the drummer for Double Image, let's talk about, which was Dave Samuels and David Friedman's band earlier than this period, earlier than the Jan Garber period. So he was in that. So I was a little familiar, I guess, with Mike DePasqua already at that time. Though it's sad that there's a couple albums. I think like the Double Image album, the one that they recorded for ECM, Dave Samuels, Dave Friedman, Harvey Schwartz on bass, I think, and Mike DePasqua. That's another ECM album that hasn't come out on compact disc. Yeah, so I pulled out some really good albums here. At least only two of the three were ECMs. So okay, guys, I'm gonna keep it under a half hour this time on this late Saturday night. And if you can, please subscribe to my other channel. With the link will be in the description box. So that I have some more views. It's going to take me a while to build that up, but eventually that may be the only place where I'll come on and do videos, and just keep my other Cosmic Pickle channel for maybe just album uploads, obscure out-of-print albums or something. Okay, guys, hope everybody's doing well. Thanks for watching as always, and I will be back soon. Take care.
Tune in next time for more
Tales from the Garage.